The Quasar-Fire Class light carrier was instrumental in expanding the fighter capacity of small Imperial fleets. Where an Imperial-class Star Destroyer was inappropriate to deal with the situation, a Quasar-Fire could carry a large number of Imperial starfighters into battle. Today we'll discuss its design, its history, and how it affected the outcome of the Galactic Civil War. I'm Colin, and this is Sci-Fi Deep Dive. Remember, if you enjoyed this video, to head down below and hit that subscribe button. So, as its name suggests, the Quasar-Fire Class light carrier is a light carrier. Its primary function in an Imperial fleet would be to carry a large number of starfighters. Even though the design features appear to originate from Kuat drive yards, the Quasar-Fire class is actually built by the Soros Sub Corporation. The Quasar-Fire class light carrier's main features were its row of hangar bays. 4 hangar bays hung beneath the structure of the vessel. As one would expect from a carrier, most of its offensive capabilities come from its air wing. When it comes to point defenses, it only sports a handful of laser cannons. But as I mentioned, that doesn't really matter because its main offensive weapons are its fighters. Now, while we don't know specifically in canon how many fighters it could carry, it appears to be a fairly significant number. Unlike ships like the Gazanti or the Architans, which could carry a fairly limited variety of TIE fighters due to their narrow docking structures, the Quasar-Fire's large hangar bays allowed it to carry other TIE variants like the TIE Advanced X-1, the TIE Bomber, and they could probably even land a Lambda in there if they could really squeeze it. Now, while we don't know exactly when the Quasar-Fire class was introduced into the Imperial fleet, we do know it was relatively early in the reign of the Empire. We know during the early years of the Empire they had a primary role as training centers for Imperial fighter pilots. But as threats like the Rebel Alliance rose to meet the Empire, the Imperial Navy needed a way of delivering a large number of fighters to a battlefield. The first notable use of this vessel in canon in combat was to subjugate Ryloth. One of these carriers was parked in orbit, and bombers from this carrier were used to strike fear into the hearts of the people of Ryloth. For the people of Ryloth, this carrier in orbit became a symbol of Imperial oppression, which is why it was a particularly potent symbol when this carrier was hijacked and stolen by the Rebel Alliance. This particular carrier would become the base of operations for a fighter squadron for the Rebels, and it would be renamed Phoenix Nest. We know during its time with the Rebel Alliance, this particular carrier saw action during the Battle of Atollon, where it was destroyed. In the later years of the Galactic Civil War, as the Rebellion became more of a threat and Imperial-class Star Destroyers became a more common sight on battlefields against the Rebel Alliance, the Quasar-Fire became a less common sight. Since the Imperial-class Star Destroyer also functioned like a carrier, the Quasar-Fire became a little redundant, where it excelled in situations where an Imperial-class Star Destroyer wasn't needed. When the Rebel Alliance became more of a threat, the Star Destroyer became less of an overreaction. Still, we do know a few other engagements that they were involved in. We know one was present when the Empire attacked the Mako Ta shipyard shortly after the Battle of Yavin, and they popped up here and there after the Battle of Endor. The last known use in canon of a Quasar-Fire class light carrier was in the defense of the Kuat drive yards, when the Rebel Alliance was mounting an attack on the massive shipyard that had built most of the Imperial Navy's vessels. A few Quasar-class light carriers were among the ships defending these facilities. It's assumed that, like many Imperial vessels defending the shipyards, they were lost in the battle. There actually are a couple of interesting things to note about this vessel, though. It's also sometimes referred to as the Quasar-Fire Class bulk carrier. Now, we never see one of these in action, but I assume that the hangars were replaced with large cargo areas. This would make it a fairly effective logistic vessel, but not as effective as the Imperial cargo ships we see in Rebels. Another interesting thing to note is that this vessel also does appear in Star Wars Legends. There's only a few minor differences between the vehicle in canon and in Legends, the most notable being that the 4 hangars are combined into one large hangar in Legends. But as a fighter carrier, it was remarkably effective. The large hangar space on a relatively small vessel made it a really good asset to be deployed with smaller, lesser-armed Imperial fleets. But that's basically the only place it could be deployed. Its light armament meant it almost always needed an escort, and most of the time those escorts are Architans-class light cruisers. If you want to know more about the Architans-class light cruiser, I'll leave a link up here to my video on that. And with Star Wars Squadrons around the corner, I want you to let me know down in the comments if you would like to see one of these ships in Squadrons. After all, it is a light cruiser packed with Imperial starfighters. And if you enjoyed this video, head down below, hit the like button, the subscribe button, and the bell icon so you get notified when I upload new videos. So for Sci-Fi Deep Dive, I'm Colin, and I will see you next time.